were able to put the grant together and form this nonprofit, Foothills Connect Business and Technology Center, which I run, to redevelop our economy using broadband technologies as the base for a new economy. In that regard, we are developing small businesses and have a toolkit of services that we put at the disposal of small businesses. And just a chance conversation with my cousin, who's a chef in Charlotte. He's a sous chef. I went to visit him, and I said, and I mentioned to him that we have all this vacant space, that nobody's growing vegetables. The biggest crop grown in this county was 17,000 acres of hay to support the grass-fed beef business that represents 80% of the economy in this county. And he said, and I can't get fresh food. And I said to him, but you work for the Marriott. How can the Marriott not get fresh food? They got to be one of the biggest buyers of food in the world. And he said, because of the system. The way it's set up with industrial food is that it takes 2 weeks to get it through this transportation refrigerated warehouse system from either California, Florida, Arizona, New Mexico, or Mexico, where most of it's grown. And I said, but if we could get you food, would you buy it? And he said, well, there's probably all kinds of obstacles you're going to have to overcome with centralized purchasing, et cetera, but we'll see. Well, it took a while, and the first conversation with his executive chef, he said, I'll never buy food from you. And then the second time, he said, but I can get squash anywhere. And then the third time I went to visit him, he said, well, if you had some specialty food, I might try them. And I said, like what? And he said, well, you're the farmer, you tell me. And I said, how about cressy greens? And like me, he had never heard of them. I just heard of them like the day before from a farmer. That's all he had in the wintertime was cressy greens. And it's like a land cress, very strong. Well, I had no idea that in the wintertime, the chefs have a really hard time getting flavorful food, with the result that people use a lot more dressing, salad dressing on their salads, and that the salad dressing costs more an ounce than the food, than the vegetative matter. And I mean, this has been a real learning experience for me too. So I came back the next week with a box of cressy greens. Actually, I had 7 boxes in there. And this is an interesting part of the story, because I'd gone out to meet the farmer, and I asked him, well, how much you want for a case? And he said, $10. And he had 7 cases there, and the chef had only expressed interest in 2 or 3 cases. So, you know, I think I gave him 2 20s for 3 cases. And he had no change. He had nothing in his wallet. And I realized, because he didn't have any money. So I bought all 7 from him. And I gave him 4 20s and said I'd come back for the 10. And so I had 7 cases in there, because I figured at the very least I'd give them away as samples. And so he had the cressy greens. I took them to the chef. He ate some, and all of a sudden the flavor just exploded in his mouth. And he said, he said, those are wonderful. And he called out his boys, these sous chefs, and they tasted it. And they said, oh, yeah. Some of the local guys said, oh, yeah, that's cressy greens. I remember those, yeah. And so he said, okay, well, he said, but I told you I only wanted 2 or 3. And I said, well, you know, I was going to give away the rest. And he said, and the farmer had put the price on there. Yeah. And he said, is that how much he wants? And I said, well, yeah. He said, I'll take them all. So I realized, when I went back to the farmer, I said, how do you price these things? And he said, well, whatever they give me. Yeah. So I realized there's a real gap here, that the farmers might have been great farmers, but are not good businessmen, and that the chefs didn't know anything about these guys. They were being forced to order from some industrial food processor on the other side of the country. And So we started organizing farmers, started meeting farmers, and then we started selling their product over a website that we had designed. And now we're on our 4th iteration of that website. We know what we want, and we are now selling $5,000 a week